I would have to say it's not just the successes, but it's being able to look at your failures and the things that didn't go very well. I've always had, I don't know, where it came from, but I've always had an ability or that thing in me that says even when things are going really well, I'm always, I say ABE, always be evaluating. And so I'm always asking the question, what could I have done different? What could I do better?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Loan Officer Growth, the podcast that helps loan officers grow their business, increase their success, and have more freedom. So today is a special treat. We have Dave Brown on the call. Dave has many years as a loan officer, a coach, an entrepreneur, a coach's coach, and I consider a dear friend of mine, an all-around awesome person. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Hey, Richard, how you doing, man? That was an incredible intro. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, why don't tell us how you got started?
Oh, man. Well, let's see. There was this miracle that happened back in, okay, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm kidding you. So, yeah, but so I've been in the mortgage business over 30 years. Can you believe that?
Wow.
I guess I'm an old guard or veteran of the industry, but yeah, I started in the 80s when I was going to college. And from there, just like a lot of other stories, within a very short time, I was a top producer in my little branch. And so then they said, hey, we're going to make you the sales manager. And
Nice.
I just continued to progress, my career, for the next, 20, 25 years, with that trajectory, and ultimately found my biggest passion and niche was I ultimately ended up becoming a non-producing manager for years and running really large sales teams. And as many in the mortgage industry know, depending upon the ebbs and flows of business, and I think we're in one of those ebbs right now, aren't we? Um, but when some of those things would happen, my company would come and say, all right, you're a non-producing manager, but we need production. You got to go back and start, writing a few loans. And so I'd go write some loans then I'd be a producing manager. And then when it, got a little better, okay, we don't want you, writing loans. We want you going and recruiting and mentoring and training. And so that really became what I learned to be really good at, Richard. And it's
Nice.
kind of what got me excited. So if I could go make, a dollar motivating somebody else versus $2 writing a loan myself, I would take the dollar because it was more exciting and fun to watch others. And so that was kind of how I got to where I am. So, and then you and I got to team up doing some coaching, and I think we worked at a company several years ago, the same company, and that's when I really met you for the first time. And then we got to work together as coaches, and start a friendship that's been pretty cool. And I'm hoping and confident it's going to last a long, long time, man.
Awesome. Me too. So what's something that you love? Like, what do you love the most about what you do right now?
So, right now, that's a great question, Richard. And so, I would tell you it's pretty simple. And on my sometimes on my Zoom, it will say Dave Brown dopamine chaser. And
Nice.
the reason it says that, and it's not up there right now because I'm not logged into my account, but the reason I have that on there is it's kind of a story real quick. And so years ago, I had a sales rep that I had promoted from sales into management. And I was invited to a Christmas party at his house. And when I went, walked in the door, his wife ran up and threw her arms around me. Never forget this. I mean, we're talking back literally in about '06, because this was a pivotal moment that made me think and decide to ultimately step out of origination and start coaching and training, more on a full-time basis for a while. But she threw her arms around me and she thanked me. And I was like, what is going on? And she kept
Wow.
saying, thank you. You have pulled out of my husband the man that I fell in love with and knew was in there. and you've pulled that out of him from a business standpoint. He's been playing small, and I've believed in him more than he has. And you finally pulled it out. And I'm finally married to the guy that I knew was in there. And she was like, thank you, Dave Brown. And man, I mean, literally right now I'm goosebumps, got goosebumps when I tell it, because it's real and it happened. And in that moment, that's the dopamine or the rush. When I
Yeah.
got that feeling, that was the feeling that I said, I don't care what I have to do, but I love that feeling. How do I go get more of that?
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. And that was what changed for me, going from, all right, I'm full-time in the mortgage business, and now I'm going to, really go out and start my own company at that time. But what I also realized, Richard, is that was the feeling that I chased during the day when I was running sales teams, where, we had a couple of years where we closed in excess of $1 billion in my personal sales teams, 8,500 loans. I mean, that's a lot of loans in a year for us,
Wow.
to close. But what I realized, when I would get low or maybe tired during the day, I would walk around the bullpen, walk around the office, pick up the phone, call my sales reps. And what I was really doing was trying to pump somebody up so that they could give me that energy back. That, hey, boss, here's, they would always call me boss man, kind of as a joke. But hey, boss man, I just nailed down, I took a deal from another competitor. I did this. And those wins were those little dopamine rushes that I got.
Yeah.
But then when I had that loan officer's spouse, share with me that moment, that's when I decided that, man, no matter what, that's the feeling I want inside. And so that's what I now do. And so when I'm on a coaching call with people just like you, when I can look into the camera, and I call it that aha moment, and when I see all of a sudden that I get it, that and you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You see it in their face and in their eyes, and they're like, Coach, I get it. Okay. Or they're excited to tell you that, hey, that thing we talked about 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, I've been implementing it and it's working. And oh my gosh. And every time, the way I have a 22-year-old son, he just turned 22 yesterday. I had to think about that. But the way Andrew describes it is, he describes it as like burp, 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 like a little battery, kind of
Right.
recharging. And he's like, that's what recharges your battery, isn't it, Dad? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good explanation. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
I mean, I'm sure when you're coaching people, you see those same exact things, and I'm sure that gets you charged up as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It's that passion to help, and when you
yeah.
do and when they catch it, it's like amazing. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's how, again, people like us that do coach and train a lot of our day and our weeks, sometimes people would say, well, maybe they're doing that because they aren't good at selling, or they aren't this. But it's like, no, when you get that feeling, I'm telling you what, it's priceless. And helping others grow, and that's where it's all at. Because for me, I love coaching and training and talking with people about leadership. And as you know, I'm a big John Maxwell fan,
Yep.
certified to train on his material. And just on a personal level, I've used and studied his material for probably 25 years. I remember reading the book that was the most impactful was Failing Forward, that he wrote probably 25 years ago.
Right.
And yeah, wasn't that a great book? And so when I read that, it was like I was hooked on John Maxwell, and I started studying everything I could about leadership and how to help others around me. And back to my career, that was really what started to change the trajectory of my career, when I understood that there was a difference between managing and leading people. Managing was showing up in the morning, having a quick huddle, rah, rah, you got to get out there, let's go sell, reading some reports. leading was sitting down, teaching and training them, pouring into them, taking them on a sales call, showing them how to have conversations. And I just really dedicated, my life to, being a better leader, with my people, just
I
like you
love
have,
that.
man. I've followed you for a long time, and, you are an incredible leader. I always say you're a quiet, humble giant. Because I watch what you do, and and I think you and I, to some degree, I might thump my chest a little more, but you're not one of those to get on Facebook and beat your chest, but you just confidently lead. You're successful, and that's why people are attracted to you and follow you. Quite honestly, that's what attracted me to you, as a friend. So
I appreciate that, man.
you bet, man. So what else you want to talk about today?
So success usually happens in small steps, right? What
Yes.
are some of the steps you've taken that has brought on your success? Because I look at you as a very, very successful coach, mentor, leader. What are some of those small steps that you've taken that has led you to that?
Thank you. That's a good question. Um, I would have to say it's not just the successes, but it's being able to look at your failures and the things that didn't go very well. I've always had, I don't know, where it came from, but I've always had an ability, or that thing in me that says, even when things are going really well, I'm always, I say ABE, always be evaluating. And so I'm always asking the question, what could I have done different? What could I do better? When things don't go well. As an example, I just was on a coaching call 2 days ago with a loan officer, and she was talking about this deal that fell apart, and got all the way to closing and actually closed, and there was an $11,000 error.
Ow.
Yeah, they missed an $11,000 error, and it went all the way through the system with an addendum that didn't get caught. And at the end of the day, the processor should have caught that because
Right.
she did the change order. But I looked in the camera and I said, you always have to be evaluating. I do it, you have to do it. What can you put into place so that that never happens again? Because at the end of the day, it's your business.
Right.
And she said, you're right. I should have reviewed. She said, I did review the CD, but I didn't know that the addendum had changed $11,000 because it was handled. And I said, well, those are the kind of things. So directly to answer your question, it's one, being able to evaluate. And then it's always, how do I make things better? And then I go back to that book that I read, John Maxwell 25 years ago, Failing Forward. I've always been able to fail, stub my toe, get back up. And I've always had that drive to say, all right, that's behind me. I've got to push forward now, because my goals and the things that I want to accomplish, if I don't take action, aren't going to happen. And so for me, it's just always being able to admit to it, stand up, brush myself off, evaluate, okay, how do we do it differently? And then go try to, kind of rip the ball or the leather off the ball, so to speak.
Nice. So how do you, let's say it's Monday. How does your day start? What does that look like?
Monday morning, 8 a.m. mastermind.
Nice.
I've got them with some entrepreneurs that I work with. So it's kind of interesting, Richard. So, and I would tell you mine has progressed and changed over the years. I used to be a big time block person, where I had an Excel spreadsheet that was color coded. And I used that religiously, and I had everything just targeted and blocked when I would do everything.
Yep.
And I used to keep it on my door, on the outside of my door, so that my teams knew exactly what I was doing. Now, the way that my days work, Monday mornings, I start with an 8 a.m. mastermind after getting up in the morning. I always get up in the morning, read the Bible, try to read Proverbs every day, the according, chapter to the day. And I've just started reading a Bible in a year program. So I've added that. So a little quiet time meditation, try to get some workout in if possible, and then, get into the office, 8 a.m. mastermind. What's changed in my schedule, though, is I have realized that I am much more fresh mentally for creative things in the morning hours.
Right.
Yeah. And
I'm
so
the
I keep
same.
my,
Yeah.
are you the same? Okay. So I keep my schedule. I try to keep it open until noon for kind of me time, if you will, to do the things that I need to do because I know I'm the most creative. Now that doesn't mean I'm not good in the afternoons, but I always talk about I probably have undiagnosed adult ADHD. Okay, I think a lot I think a lot of salespeople, let's face it, we have that.
Yes.
So after lunch hour, I don't want to sit and look at a computer and read my notes and do things like that. So in the mornings, I'm really good at doing what I would call the creative visionary things. Afternoon, I'm more of the integrator, and that's when starting 11 to 12 and after is when I do coaching calls and meetings and things like that, because I can sit and talk to people until 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm really on my game, so to speak. But when I have to sit quietly and think and stare into a computer screen and work, I'm not very good in the afternoon. I'm
Right.
fidgety. I would literally, in the middle of the afternoon, Richard, I would literally like sit here and I'll be like, squirrel, I haven't got a car wash since yesterday. Why don't I run and get a car wash? I mean, literally, I could get up and go get a car wash and realize I just left the office squirreled on that. So that's when I schedule all of my meetings, face-to-face things, because it doesn't take the as quite of the focus, when I'm sitting and talking. So that's how I have to work my schedule. But it's something I've really just learned and been doing the last couple of months.
Oh, really? Okay. So do
Yeah,
you
up
have,
until then,
oh,
go ahead.
I was going to ask you if, do you have like brainstorming sessions by yourself to just brainstorm ideas and things? Do you do that?
I I do. I'm a late night person, so that is my brainstorming time. When I just sit there with my phone and my little notes open or my iPad, and I just sit there and I've learned and I've been doing this for years. I just literally brain dump. And one of our dear friends, Carl White, at some of his events, he'll have people do a brain dump,
Right.
and which I think is such a cool activity. But I tend to sit there at night and do kind of a brain dump. Not every night, but I would say several times a
That's,
week. I
yeah,
just
that's
and I
very smart because
Yeah.
what people have found, I can't remember who wrote the book, but he had a whole chapter on this theory that yeah, when you brain dump like that before you go to bed, you sleep much better because you're not worried about all these little things going on in your mind because you've already written them all down.
Yes. And again, I go back to that adult ADHD, which for me, I will sit there and I wouldn't say I'm a hypochondriac, but I'm definitely a check person. My wife kind of jokes with me and makes fun of me because I have to have the pillows just right, the bed just right, the doors. I have to go around and check all the doors, and I'm not so compulsive that I have to lock, unlock, that kind of stuff. But
Right.
for me, if I go to bed with a full mind, I'll just lay there for hours, and so it's a kind of a coping
Yeah.
mechanism for me to help me, almost like meditation is how I use that. I just get everything off my just and it's not really a to-do list. It's just, you know, anything and
It's
everything that's in my brain.
yeah, it's kind of like a computer. You have to reboot because that
Yes.
memory gets bogged down with so much that it totally slows down the computer and you have to reboot. So I think it works the same way with our brains.
I think you're right. I'm gonna be vulnerable. I'm gonna share a moment with you here, Richard. Okay.
Okay.
If I don't do that, this people are gonna say, yep, his wife nailed it. If I don't do that brain dump, if I lay down in bed and I start to think and I lay there and all of a sudden if I don't brain dump, then I have to get back up and I have to go around again. My wife calls it the checks. I have to start the whole going to bed process over again. Then I'll have to go around the house, check the doors, make sure everything's okay, go to the bathroom, kind of do, then go back to bed. And
Right.
it's So so she'll laugh because I'll be getting up and 30 minutes in, she'll be like, hmm, check checks. But for me, it's like clearing the cache on the computer.
Yeah.
But I think more business people could do that to, just clear their brain, get it out there. And, whether you do it, once a week or every couple of weeks, I'm telling you, it is a very freeing, method that I have found that I think helps me be more successful.
So let's say when you're planning for the next week coming up, do you
Yes.
do that on Friday? Do you do it on Sunday? Like how do you, or do you not do it? Like how do you plan your new week coming up?
Yeah, I typically that's a Saturday morning typically activity for me. And again, when I say it's a Saturday morning activity, it's typically a Saturday morning, but I'm also in a little bit of a newer spot in the last couple of years. I'm what I guess they call it an empty nester.
Yep.
And so Richard, nobody, it's the weirdest thing for those of you that are experiencing it. Like you go from people needing you all the time to nobody really needs you. So I have, more free time, than I used to have. So, Saturdays was always my, time that I would, reflect. Didn't matter if I was at the lake, but now I still typically will start that on Saturday mornings. But just because of being a little more free, sometimes it progresses throughout the weekend. But I always start that initially on a Saturday morning. It's my review time.
Yep.
What did I do? What worked well? Make a few notes. I've got my little, for people that, I've still got my little journal here. I like to, even though I take tons of notes in my phone and so forth, I still, this is kind of where I do that reflection time and so forth. I
Nice.
still like to write things in a journal, and there's all kinds of stuff in here, from what went well, podcasts that I were on, notes from church, maybe. I just kind of keep this with me sometimes. Um, but that's for me. But I believe that people need to have a time when they're, whether it's the end of the week, first thing. I used to be when I had kid, when the kids were home, I would tell you it was always a Sunday evening activity.
Okay.
Yeah. Years ago, it was always a Sunday evening activity. And I always, again, creature of habit, it was always by the time 60 Minutes, that new show came on TV, that was like the official end of the weekend for me, when my brain kind of, about that time of Sunday evening is when my brain turned off from family time to I'd go back into work mode. Um,
Right. And it
just
definitely helps for being reactive. Like a lot of people will come in, start their Monday morning in total reactive mode. I mean, I was guilty of that years ago, and
okay.
it's not fun.
It's isn't that funny? I was just going through some old material, from back in '06. I had people are gonna laugh, a CD-ROM. It was a CD-ROM. It was a video. I spent $10,000 to have a demo video made,
Hmm.
and I had 500 of these DVDs made, and I was sending them out around the country. But and I watched it the other day. It was like a 12-minute video that I had made, just kind of showcasing me personally so that
Right.
I could, get a little more known around the country. But one of the things I watched in there was I talked about, do you have a set plan and a structure, or do you wake up and go, going to go to the office and try to get me alone today?
Hmm.
And I said that on that demo video, but it's exactly what you're talking about. There is a direct correlation between the loan officer or the salesperson that has a plan, has it thought out, knows exactly what they're going to do. That doesn't
Right.
mean there can't be variations in the schedule during the day, but they know what they're going to do when their feet hit the floor, versus that person who, well, I'll get up 7:30, 8 o'clock, whenever I wake up, and I'll meander to the office, and then I'll see if there's any activity going on, and maybe I'll get a deal today. I mean, you see that, don't you? Direct
Yep.
correlation between the successful people are more prepared than the people that are struggling.
Definitely. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
I see that all the time right now.
So what's something that you're excited about that you're working on right now?
Well, is it okay to share what I'm working on right now? You mind?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, I've been off camera. You and I were talking about. So, I've been launching toppaidcoach.com. And what that is, it's really a culmination of all of my business and coaching experiences over the years. And, with the good graces of our dear friend, I've been able to put together really a coaching platform that I found a need that there's, two kind of categories that this is directing. And it's branch managers, sales managers that are promoted into positions, but they're not really trained on how to be a better manager and leader. They're typically promoted because they're the top salesperson, let's face it.
Right.
I mean, you and I are in the mortgage industry and have been our whole lives. That's primarily where we've worked, but other industries are similar. The top salesperson gets promoted and they don't really train that person. So I want to be able to pour into those individuals that need some help from a leadership standpoint to grow their skills, because that's what I did. I ran really large sales teams, recruited, trained, mentored, hired, fired, those kind of things. But then the other thing I'm really excited with toppaidcoach.com to do is there are a lot of adults out there that have knowledge, and not just the mortgage industry, across all spectrums. And I want to help people set up a coaching platform for themselves that if they want to take their knowledge, whether it's let's just call it an automotive dealer, or it could be a guy that wrenches on a car and he's really good at it and he wants to help train other people to do what he does, and maybe just share his passion and knowledge. I mean, there's over $1 billion a year being spent in the online industry, people buying coaching packages or things from other people that they're selling a little bit of their knowledge, $1 billion and growing. And so, yeah, my passion is now I want to take those people that don't know how to do that and just help them put a framework around it so that if they want to go out and coach and train other people, that they can have kind of that experience I talked about, that feeling, that dopamine rush that you and I
Right.
get every week. I want to, help people see how they can get that. And then along the way, not only get the satisfaction of helping people grow, but they can make a few dollars sharing their knowledge, whether it's online or in person. And so that's what I've been working on. So full speed ahead, and really, launching that, and, going to have our first workshop here in a couple of weeks. I think the
Nice.
first week of August. And it's going to be a 2-hour kind of pull back the curtains, I don't want to call it a boot camp. I'm calling it an accelerator course, but it's going to be 2 hours where I kind of pull back the curtain and show the 9 topics that are critical to leading and managing and really having a coaching business if you want to share your knowledge with other people. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun, man.
That's really
So
cool. Is that going to be like a Zoom call?
yeah, it's going to be a Zoom.
Okay.
And so yeah, I'm going to do it as a Zoom. And so it's going to be a 2-hour, and we're just going to move through a lot of details because I've got 9 major topics with 3 training points under each one. So 27 topics. Ultimately, it's going to be an 8-week course that I'm going to move people
Very cool.
into. But yeah, the first couple of weeks of August, I'm going to have 2 different dates. I'll make sure I drop you an invitation for that. But we're probably here next week. It'll start. I'll start to put that out on Facebook and things like that for people just to
That's
see what we're
awesome.
doing. And people will be able to just get an idea. And again, it's going to be, no pressure. I mean, people can come and show up to that and just, pick up some free information if they want to, some free knowledge. And that's what it's all about, because if one person on that call gets that bug and that excitement,
Yeah.
again, that's where I get excited, seeing people grow. And I'm just passionate about that, Richard. So thanks for letting me share it, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, you bet. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm
So I
pretty
guess we have
passionate about
time
it.
for one more question. So
Okay.
what words of encouragement do you have for loan officers right now in these current times?
That is the $1,000,000 question. And so it is a tough one. So I'm going to tell you, if you're a loan officer right now in this industry, have faith, stay the course, keep your family and your circle of friends tight because you need that support system right now. Do whatever you have to do to stay in it so that you can win. I truly believe if you can stay in it. Now, with that, there's some other things. You need to be doing the things that your coaches are telling you to do. You have to get out and make more contacts.
Yeah.
But assuming you're doing all those things, even though it's tough, stay in it. Do anything you can to stay in it, because we're going to see additional people drop out, I believe, between now and the end of the year. And those that can stay in it are going to be able to have it come out of this with more market share. And I think they're going to set themselves up for the next 5 to 7, 8 years to have a really good career in the mortgage industry. But you've got to stay in it to win it. If I could leave those words of encouragement, stay in it, guys. Just have the faith. Have the faith.
That's awesome. All right, man. It's been great talking to you, Dave.
You as well, buddy. Hey, can we do a virtual fist bump?
Yeah, there you go.
Boom. Love it, man. Hey, you're amazing, Richard. Everything about you, I'm a fan. And so I want to thank you for having me on. It's been a great time.
I appreciate that. Thanks for being on.